Hey everyone, I am thrilled to have another Adobe colleague alum with me, Scott Morris. Scott is currently the VP of Marketing at Zendesk, has a wealth of knowledge to share with everyone, and I'm excited that we can kind of dig in a little bit on customer experience, marketing, and also just I'm a big fan of Zendesk and all that they do to help companies and their support teams. So I'm excited to dig in a little bit more on that. Scott, if you wouldn't mind giving us a little intro on yourself, kind of how you got to Zendesk, what you're kind of doing over there, and we'll go from there.
Awesome, Joe. Thanks. So great to be here. Thanks for inviting me. So I'm VP of Integrated Marketing at Zendesk. I've been there about 2.5 years now. For those who don't know, Zendesk is a software company based in San Francisco. We make customer service software, but also SFA, Salesforce, sales automation software and customer engagement solutions. Which is basically another way of saying that we, like many other companies, are in the business of basically helping our customers create great experience for their customers, right? It's really all about CX for us. My role in particular at Zendesk is I'm responsible for what we call sort of lifecycle or integrated marketing. It's really the campaigns that take customers and prospects from awareness to consideration to purchase and beyond. They're big global at-scale campaigns that we do in all the regions and countries in which we do business globally. I also manage the regional marketing teams in North and South America, like AKA field marketing in the Americas. The global events team that's responsible for our big annual user conference, which obviously looks very different now, and our big sort of marquee live events, and now online events around the world. Our partner marketing team, and then finally engagement marketing, which is basically the team that handles some of the highest volume customer touch points, like email and in-product messaging and webinars and localization and stuff like that. And prior to Zendesk, which is where we crossed paths, I did spend quite a few years at Adobe. Most recently, I was in an integrated marketing role there for a couple of years. Got a chance to live in Tokyo, which was really awesome, a great opportunity that was thrilling and one of the most exciting parts of my career to date. And then I spent quite a few years in product marketing there, and where I did, among other things, I launched Creative Cloud, which is, for those who don't know, it was one of the first and biggest transitions of sort of a traditional software company to move to subscription in the cloud.
Wow, I actually didn't. I mean, I kind of knew, but I didn't make that connection that you were a big part of that.
I was actually leading the product marketing team during all that. Yeah, I started just doing the video products there, and then over time also took on Photoshop and the imaging products, and then the web products and the design tools like InDesign and Illustrator. And then I was actually, on the front lines. It was a tough time, right?
Yeah.
Some people didn't like the shift to the business model. So I literally was the spokesperson kind of out there trying to get designers and creatives to understand actually the good, the benefits of this and all the cool things cloud could bring them. But, it wasn't that common then. So they just kind of liked working on their desktop tools. And at that time weren't sharing all their files in the cloud and collaborating through the cloud and doing all those things that everyone's doing now. So it's tough times, but really, really fun. And again, high point of my career for sure.
Yeah, that's super cool. I mean, obviously we had so many all hands meetings, like monthly, I feel like. Yeah. And it was just so cool to kind of be a fly on the wall. I think I'd been the company for maybe a year or two. So I was kind of just getting my feet wet there, but it was such a cool experience to be a part of. That's really, I'm sure you lost a few years of your life, but
yeah, definitely. It was, one of the things that was hard about it, I think, is that it was so new, right? And so what Adobe basically did out of the gate is they just offered their desktop tools as a subscription, right? And the cloud value is something that built over time. It started with some cloud storage for your files. And so it was hard for people to see, like, how is this better other than I get updates all the time without having to buy an upgrade. But then Adobe has invested so much in all the collaboration tools that are kind of built into it, things like what was formerly Typekit, fonts that you can put on your website that are all embedded in it. Just really, really strong. Also, like the ability to share your brushes and palettes and things like that across the creative applications, which you couldn't really do before. So by really adding all that value, where like, hey, the cloud is actually different and better, and here's what you get that you wouldn't get the old way. That's what really was like the tipping point where it just took off, and that company's doing amazing right now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the stock did not slow down when either of us left. So let's, we came from Adobe, which was kind of making an experience was the brand motto at kind of the end. And obviously, Zendesk is on the front lines of customer experience, leading support, and people have, researched a whole bunch of things before they maybe use the Zendesk tool to like connect with whoever they're frustrated with at another company. How have you what is the DNA of a good experience? How does I think integrated marketing is obviously a key piece of that.
Mm-hmm.
What are some key points that you think really where marketing really fits into that customer experience or the customer journey?
Yeah, good question. So as you know, everyone sort of defines customer experience so differently. It can mean so many things to so many people. So like to kind of cut through the clutter and confusion, I always just think of it as the customer journey, right? Customer experience equals customer journey. And so what is the role that marketing plays in that? And to deliver a really amazing customer journey, in my opinion, there's a couple things you have to do. And of course, there's the obvious ones. You have to think full funnel. How do you drive awareness and bring prospects through and just deliver a delightful experience? But I think, for me, a really important part that makes a customer journey super successful is you obviously have to make it relevant, right? And a great way to do that, not all companies do it. Zendesk is actually on a journey with this ourselves, but things like segmentation and personalization, right? It really helps drive a stronger emotional connection because you've sort of shown that the customer, right? You know what they're looking for. You sort of put in more effort to deliver an experience that's aligned with what you think they care about, or you care about. It's oftentimes think. And we're still on that journey at Zendesk, right? For example, segmentation, pretty deep. We do it really well. We do it around buyers and all the personas in the buying center, including the influencers and market segments and industries. But personalization's harder, and we're just starting on that journey, right? Really putting that right message at the right time across the right channel that feels very personalized and relevant. Another thing that I have spent a lot of time on, I did this at Adobe and have spent a lot of time on this at Zendesk, is that a really important part of the good customer experience is everything that happens after they've purchased, right? I mean, so many marketers were so focused on acquisition because that tends to be where our KPIs are. We want to drive pipeline, want to help the sales team close deals, whatever your acquisition KPIs are. But using the Adobe example, we actually struggled with that in the early days when Adobe moved to cloud because Adobe never really had to worry about that.
Yeah.
Just experience, with a product like Photoshop, people bought it and they were generally happy with it. And maybe technical support is where you would maybe, have to reach out post-purchase. But, with subscription, customers voted with their wallets every month, right? And suddenly making those customers successful kind of became job one because customer success basically equals customer happiness, right? And what does that mean? It's going to be different based on what you're selling, but in sort of the SaaS world, it's getting set up, onboarding, learning how to get the most out of what the company just sold you, all that stuff.
Right.
Hugely important. Adobe ended up investing a lot in that to really get that right. We've been doing the same thing here at Zendesk over the last couple of years. Tons of time focused on that post-purchase experience.
Yeah, those are really, really great points. I think, you definitely you learn, especially in like a lead role, how different like an educator who might be a decision maker responds compared to like a B2B CIO or even like a CMO or whoever your end kind of seller is. you kind of have to really structure, how your campaigns target those different people. And to your point, yeah, personalization is such a difficult thing to nail because it has to be like a balance of not creepy, but like provides a good experience. And maybe it's just when you're logged in, you get a nice simple hello and an experience that you might expect for your role.
Yeah.
But it is really hard to nail.
Well, I think one of the things that makes it the hardest is what I call the matrix. And it was the first thing I was confronted with when we started doing even our initial efforts in personalization at Zendesk. It's like every time you add another dimension of personalization, you just multiply the number of experiences you have to deliver, right? If you're trying to deliver, even if you think about like, are they a prospect or are they a customer? Okay, there's two. Okay, in Zendesk case, are they a sales buyer, a support buyer, or the IT buyer, and HR buyer? Okay, that's those 4 times the 2 that you had. That's 8, right? And then you add something else in, like, maybe what they've done in the past, where they came from most recently, and you just have this incredibly complex set of options and experiences you have to deliver, which is, of course, why people turn to marketing automation software to help them do that. Because if you try to do it manually, you're like dead out of the gate.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We've kind of gone a little broad with topics. I want to dig in a little bit on Zendesk personally.
Sure.
Zendesk is such a leader in customer support software. It's a go-to for enterprises and small businesses. How does it really kind of help improve that stage of the journey? There's definitely an automation element to it, but there's also a human element to it. What are kind of some of the key points or core values or things you guys try to point out?
Yeah, great. So I think most people, so by the way, you're right, we're basically a customer service company, but as I said, we have an SFA now, so we also have products for the sales buyer. We have a pretty broad portfolio. We're not like deep into digital marketing and marketing automation, but we've got a bunch of other elements of this. But if we just talk about customer service, right, which is how Zendesk got started, how we're known the best, most people think of customer service as something that happens when people need to reach out to a business with a problem, right? But that's really only half the story. Like, customer service isn't just when a customer calls or emails you. It also is when people are shopping for something and they find your business, and customer service is actually happening even though that person isn't a customer yet, right? Or when they're in your knowledge base answering their own questions. That's customer service too. And in all of these scenarios, customers expect really fast replies, and they expect them on the channels of their choice, right? And they expect that as they move between those channels, like they might have interacted with you via email, and then they interact with you via online chat on your website, and then a messaging app like WhatsApp. They expect you to know all those conversations they had with all those people across all those channels.
Right.
And that's hard, right? That's hard to do successfully. I think winning customer experiences are really about how the customer feels they're being treated, right? Like I said, if a customer bounces between, has to keep repeating themselves, or they bounce between those different departments, that's super frustrating, and they feel like their time was wasted and they weren't respected, right? Whereas like really excellent customer service happens when a company exceeds a customer's expectations, right? And this could be delivering proactive support, answering customers' questions, or getting ahead of a problem before it happens, as opposed to always being reactive. It also means going the extra mile. I think one example I like to cite is one of our customers, Zappos. They're really known for their customer service, right? And their loyalty team is empowered to basically do whatever it takes to build real human interactions with their customers. They can stay on a call, for example, as long as is necessary. They tell us that the longest call they ever had was 10 hours and 51 minutes. But calls lasting around 2 hours happen almost daily. So, that's amazing that a company can empower their team to like help customers, so deeply. And then just one final thing on the Zendesk side, I would say, proactive engagement, again, is super, super important. Like I said, reactive support, sure, that's standard. You wait for a customer to contact your business, but proactive is critical. It means anticipating, what your customers' issues are and addressing them before they even need to reach out to you, right? Like an e-commerce company getting ahead of an abandoned shopping cart, for example, by deploying a chatbot on their checkout page to answer your frequently asked questions, or I don't know, your Comcast sending customers a text about upcoming service interruptions, before they actually have the interruption.
Yeah, I mean, those are all some really great points. I like how you kind of applied customer services to so many stages. And I was talking with David Hunt, who's the head of customer support at HubSpot on the podcast a few episodes ago. And him and I were talking about, like, by the time they actually get to a person, hopefully they don't get to your person, to be honest. But by the time they get there, they've already searched everything on the web. They've probably seen some random forums that you may not have control over. They've definitely done all the automated stuff that you mentioned, like Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp or whatever. So, you better have, first of all, good stuff at that first 80%, and then really good reps at the end who are kind of, helping finish the finish line.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, do you pick up the phone and call about a problem before you try to search out online how you can fix it or something? I mean, I always go and try to figure it out myself first. And then, if I haven't actually interacted with the company directly, I understand it. But if I have, if I emailed them a problem, or if I chatted online and then I call them and they don't have any record of that stuff, that's super, super frustrating.
Yeah. Yep. And then obviously the last thing you want them to do is go out on social media kind of complaining about your product, which
is what people do, though, right? Like,
I need to talk to somebody
about how great an experience was. It's always what their problems were, right?
Yeah, I managed social listening at Adobe kind of near the end of my time there, and I definitely still got a lot of angry Creative Cloud. Is the worst thing. Adobe's the devil for the subscription service. So it's always interesting.
I actually had during that first year, I actually had hand-drawn drawings of me in not a flattering light, mailed to the office with quotes that I had said on press interviews, completely misconstrued. And what was funny is it looked like it was drawn with a crayon, a child's drawing. And I thought, is this really a creative pro? This doesn't look like they could have done this in Illustrator if they're really that pissed off.
Oh, that's awesome. That's one of those things that's really fun to look back on. But
yeah,
I'm sure
I say
really frustrating at the time.
Well, you got to take the slings and arrows, so.
We're communicating over video right now. Zoom has exploded. We're all kind of maybe have a little Zoom fatigue. But customer support is a big kind of piece of Cloud Apps business. We have a lot of people whose companies are using us for closing tickets faster, having higher satisfaction rates, not sending people to FAQ pages. They're creating a video or image. How can async tools like Cloud App or even a real-time chat, if people are using Zoom for customer support, really be helpful in kind of closing something with a visual, even in your knowledge base, if you're using it in Zendesk? How can that kind of be helpful with loyalty and satisfaction?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, certainly every marketer, knows how powerful video can be. It's a little funny now because of the Zoom fatigue that you mentioned, right? We're literally on video all day, every day in ways that we never, at least most people, including myself, never were before. And so sometimes when you talk about how awesome video is, people think about the fact that they're in video all day. But if you put that aside for a minute, and let's actually talk async video, right? Definitely top of mind in terms of thinking about the ways that businesses can connect with their customers, right? Especially in this distributed world we're in. And I think, everyone has different preferences, and I don't want every experience to be video, frankly, but there are a lot that can be greatly improved with video. Yeah, I'll use a little example that, and I'll be honest, we do use video a lot at Zendesk, but it tends to be a lot of like highly produced by our brand team video that's on our homepage and things like that. In terms of using sort of fast, kind of do it yourself to get a quick message out video, that's something that we are still early in our journey around, but increasingly it's becoming more and more important. And I think where we really started to see the power of that was actually, I don't know, a couple quarters ago. Our European marketing team actually was one of the first that really kind of tackled this. And they, as with many B2B companies, our inside sales team, our BDRs, our SDRs, they manage a high volume of interactions with prospects, right? And clients, but mainly prospects. Everyone is aware of like the email fatigue, and it's something almost every marketer struggles with. Everyone receives loads of emails every day. So how can you make it more engaging? And we also, I think, have all heard the like humans have 8 seconds of attention span, and like 9 or something like that. A shorter attention span than a goldfish. So like, how do you really engage folks and get them, pique their interest basically? And so the European team, a little while back, came up with this pilot where they actually got those inside sales team members, the XDRs, we call them, the BDRs and SDRs, as well as some of our account executives to actually be, doing quick video recording, some screen grabs, et cetera, to create a more personalized and engaging way of reaching out to their prospects. And just even a little pilot that we did. So a couple of stats, because I did a little bit of research on this. So we doubled the email open rates by doing that. I mean, if we compared against the control, we went for that type of email. It was actually back when we were doing live events. So it was inviting people to a live event because it was spring, I think, early spring. 34% was our typical email open rate. It jumped to 68%. And the click-through rate went from 4% to 88%. 88%. Like I literally had to triple check that because I couldn't believe that it was that much increase. And I think what's really important though, like the end result, because those are great, but those are just engagement metrics, right? Sure. The goal of the program was to actually get people to come to an event and to schedule a meeting. And when we compared to similar programs where we didn't use that sort of, it's kind of quick and dirty, but it's great and personalized video, we ended up booking something like 20 or 30 times as many meetings and getting folks to the event as they had done previously. So like, if you need anything to prove that video works, that's a good example. We kind of started building our SDR BDR team in Q4 last year, and we actually saw exact similar result. Like we started doing one line of text and then like a cloud out video. And it was pretty insane. Like same type of thing. I was like, we need to check that. Like I want to write a blog post, but we really need to like check that and make sure it's accurate. Yeah, you guys are in a hot space. I mean, it's definitely as companies are starting to experiment with technologies like that and they see results like that, I think you're going to just take off.
Definitely. Scott, I think you've got some really great experience. It's been a wild year. You've got a big org. Take me through kind of the inside of being a leader during this time. I find it's pretty fascinating to hear like how things kind of went down, how you've kind of adjusted, and just dig in a little bit on how it's been to be a leader during this year.
Yeah, great. So something that I think a lot of people might agree with is that I don't think I've ever learned as much about how to lead and how to nurture a team as I have in the last 6 months. I mean, I hate using the word unprecedented because it's used so frequently, but like literally if you look at unprecedented in the dictionary, I think this is what will eventually show up there. Yeah. And so if I think about some key things that I've learned. Let me talk first about my team and let me talk a little about customers, right? So for my team, I think the number one thing I've learned is really the importance of empathy. And don't get me wrong, not like I wasn't empathetic before the pandemic, and it's always been important, but like wow, you really need to understand and feel what each team member is experiencing from within their frame of reference, right? And in some ways, like when we were all in the office, it was like this democratizer because everyone had the same opportunity to show up in the same
Sure.
way.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say it was this level playing field, but all of the other things going on in their lives were in some ways left behind. At least that's the way it appeared to be. But now every dynamic in someone's personal life is like right into their work life, whether that's silly things like you're on a Zoom with someone and their kids, interrupt. So there's their family situation, their partnerships, their literal living space has all been sucked into their work experience. And by the way, there's no way to separate your work from your personal because it's all so munged together, right? That's been a huge, huge issue with the team and finding right work balance when work is where you sleep, right? And so, really, really being able to understand what someone's situation is and sort of where they're coming from, resetting your expectations, giving more room for there to be a wider range of how people are going to need to tackle things and maybe even the timeline they'll need to do it. That's been really important. And then I think from a customer perspective, I think the number one thing we've learned, like as a company, not just myself, is and actually, one of your previous episodes with our former colleague Chris Kohler from Bucks, I was listening to that a couple days ago, and he talked about the importance of simplicity, right? Simplicity in everything that we do. And we, just like any company, things had gotten so complex. We had these long-range projects we were working on. We were almost trying to do too much. And Zendesk sort of said, you know what? We're going to simplify this. We're going to start with our customers always first and their experience, and we're going to work back from there as opposed to what our plans are and try to make the customers fit into it. It means complete transparency, right? No fine print, no asterisks, no complicated processes that only make sense to Zendesk and not to our customers. And so that's been a huge thing that that won't end when the pandemic ends and we're all back to quote unquote. That's something that's now like, it's just part of who we are.
Yeah, I'm sure that's been really interesting with Zendesk kind of spanning so many different sizes of businesses. Just like the trickle down of like a smaller business using Zendesk and then that smaller business not making any money for 6 months. And they're like, hey, we can't pay for your tool anymore. And I'm sure you have like, your marketing and sales team and support team are like, well, let's like work something out and figure out how we can keep you. And I'm sure that's just been pretty crazy.
Yeah, and in fact, we did a lot of that, right? Actually, the very first thing that our CEO came out and said he wanted everyone to do is protect our customers, meaning do whatever it takes to make it right for them. And yes, you are absolutely right. We had a lot, especially SMBs, right? There were like restaurants, smaller restaurants using our software about what they went through in the early stages of the pandemic. And the rule was basically do whatever it takes. You need us to pause your billing, pause your billing. You just do something special for you, do something special for you. Because Zendesk is not luxury software, right? It's what businesses use to have important interactions with their customers. And because someone was in some hard times or wasn't able to pay or whatever, like we didn't want to take that away from them. So
sure. That's really cool. Well, thanks for kind of digging into that. The last question I always ask is a crystal ball question. Look into kind of the future a little bit, not thinking about the pandemic, not thinking about what kind of times we're in. What do you think is like the future of marketing, customer experience? Where do you kind of see trends moving?
Yeah. One thing that is, even when we're post-pandemic, but I think is here to stay is that marketers are going to need to basically know how to reach and engage prospects and customers digitally all the time for now and forever. Like, I don't think you can ever depend on being able to reach someone in a physical space, even when the pandemic is over and more people are back in offices. I mean, I think there's just been this fundamental shift there. And so how you differentiate your digital experience is really how you're going to stand out even more than today. And at Zendesk, I've been calling this, simplified digital first marketing at scale, right? It's all about how do you bring the richest, most immersive experience to an online-only world, and also get great ROI. I mean, I was actually really surprised that when we moved to only online events like every other company in the world, not only did it have good ROI, because guess what? They were a lot cheaper. We actually generated more pipeline than from our in-person events, which was like kind of amazing to me. And so, you know, and also like, I don't know that we'll ever go back and do big conferences again. I mean, I actually manage the team at the conference, and we have this conversation all the time, like how we're going to be we'll do live and in person at some point and at some scale, but just really have to rethink about all of that, rethink all of that. And the other thing, which is sort of not related to that, is I think more and more brands will define and differentiate themselves based on attributes that are outside of their product offering or their creative expression, right? So in other words, how do you weave your cultural attributes to really become customer facing and weave them into your brand attributes, right? And examples of how we're doing this at Zendesk now that I think is going to be more and more commonplace in the future is thinking about the community involvement. As a company, you know, we roll up our sleeves and plant our roots in the communities that we call home. And how does that become literally part of our brand, even in terms of how we, you know, do acquisition programs, right? We're good neighbors. How do we really focus on social impact and make that a core part of our brand? Diversity, equity, inclusion obviously is so huge right now, and we have, you know, like any company, we have a long way to go when it comes to that. But how do we weave all that stuff together and use that as a differentiator? We also have this word that I love at Zendesk that says we're humbledent, right? It's a confident and humble, kind of, you know, smashed together. So how do we like infuse all of that stuff to actually, you know, differentiate ourselves so much that we're able to attract people, you know, to our brand in ways that, you know, maybe your competitors aren't going to be able to do.
I love that. Scott, those are some really great thoughts. Thank you so much for digging into a few things about customer experience, Zendesk overall, and the future of marketing. Really great conversation today. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe, for having me. Great catching up with you too.
You too. See ya.
Bye.